Good evening and welcome to Give Me a Break. I'm Jonathan Carmody. How do we prevent these viral Chromebook burning videos when they're happening? The answer is, there's two answers to the question. One, for you parents out there, talk to your child about what they post on social media. Talk to your kids about telling your kids, hey, I don't want to be paying for this. Number one. Second, you as a parent gotta pay, and so does the child. We already dealt with one person. He was charged in New Jersey for arson and criminal mischief. He was sentenced to juvie. But are there other ways to prevent this from ever happening again in your school? And what about the costs of those Chromebooks? How do we prevent this from happening again? Here's Faith Colbert.
The talk of the town is that social media isn't just taking over the world, but also in our classrooms.
As seeing the trends, it kind of scares me, knowing that they were just kind of destroying them for fun.
Some of those popular challenges are dangerous.
Please do not throw your devices around. Please don't break your devices for a trend. It's not worth it for you.
Here at the Corpus Christi Independent School District, student technicians repair equipment daily. But even more so when viral trends like the Chromebook challenge require more hands on deck.
You or your parents may have to cover the cost, and it gives us more work and us more laptops we may not be able to send out after we've looked them over.
The Chromebook challenge consists of inserting lead into the device, which leads to the computer smoking. Now, if a student chooses another way to damage the device, there will be a price to pay.
Any breaks or intentional vandalism that takes place will be dealt with through the student code of conduct.
Even Beeville Independent School District has chimed in on laying out repercussions that may come along with following such dangerous social media challenges. Faith Colbert, 3 News.
Everyone said
There
I
are
have to
ways.
use my
300
phone on
and
the
Beeville's having
marketing
300 people pay
Everyone
$300
except WG.
and a whole month of privileges
Well,
lost. That's a good idea. Let's take a look at that punishment. This is what Beeville had to say. There has been a dangerous TikTok trend circling recently, which we need to bring to your attention. Students have been encouraged to force electrical short circuits on Chromebook devices by inserting items to the USB port. This action can spark or puncture the lithium battery in the device and pose a serious life risk. Students and parents be aware that if your student choosing to engage this trend, they will face serious consequences, including not limited to the following: approximately $300 in replacement costs, a minimum of a 30-day loss of technology use, school consequences such as an in-school suspension or DAEP. You want your parents paying $300 because it's going to cost you about $300. You want your parents paying $300 each? Do you want your parents? Do you think it's funny? Do you want your parents to pay $300? That's how much these Chromebooks are costing. You want to damage this Chromebook right here? You want me to pay $300 for this? I'm not paying $300. Your mom and dad are paying $300. You want to damage my Chromebook? You're paying $300. Every cent. I mean, what am I gonna get $300 from? Go wash some dishes. Oh, Barry, yeah, you want to steal your mom's credit card, huh? You might get a job, you got to wash some dishes? You think it's funny? It's not funny. Hey, Alyssa Lamb, you got some dishes? Because these kids gonna want to wash some dishes. It's not funny. Loss of privileges. Sitting in school suspension saying to yourself, hey, you guys said this saying to yourself, hey, maybe he's right. I shouldn't be doing something like this. It's gonna get me in trouble. I don't want my mom and dad paying $300 of their hard-earned money when they gotta pay for food, water, rent, electricity. Because my mom and dad put a roof over my head, clothes on my back, and they give me food and water. I shouldn't have to make them pay $300, $400 for a Chromebook. Let's give it back to the school. I mean, if you look up Chromebooks online, The average cost of a Chromebook The average cost of Chromebook is not only 300 over 400, almost $400. It's $300. You actually get it for like 45% off. For like, you want for $200. Actually, get one for like $40. There's one for $400 on Amazon. So, if you participate in this challenge, your parents are footing the bill. $300. You want your parents to pay $300, Beeville? Then don't be participating in challenges like this. It's going to get you in trouble and you're going to face serious consequences, like in this next story. Coming up next, an autistic child is arrested and sentenced to a juvenile detention center for 8 days. 8 days! And still ahead, a Project Baltimore story you won't want to miss. It involves a third-grade teacher going to trial for sexual abuse. Later on, another teacher. This time, she quits her job over technology and students not reading. Please stay with us. Imagine as a dad, you're working and you don't answer the phone because you're busy. Because you're busy on your job, because they don't want you to take phone calls while you're on your shift. Now imagine you get your break and you get a phone and you look through your voicemail, and it's from your school saying that your child is getting arrested and sentenced to 8 days in juvenile hall. You're angry and you're frustrated. You wish that something would happen. You would wish that there would be some changes going on. Well, one dad, which you're about to meet, he says it happened. He says his autistic son was put in handcuffs, and not only that, he was sentenced to 8 days in the juvenile detention center. The dad says they did not follow proper protocols. No phone calls, no nothing. It was just handcuffs, sent to jail. Are we going back to the days to where kids and cuffs are being put in place? And what are the proper protocols to not ever have this from ever happening again? You be the judge. Here's Mike Jimenez.
They should know how to respond to a child with this kind of disability, and I don't feel they do.
Frustration from the parent of an 11-year-old child with special needs who attends Tatneff Middle School, part of Northside ISD.
Very bright. He is autistic. He's got multiple diagnoses with ODD, ADHD.
The child's father says over the past school year, his son has had dozens of behavioral issues and has asked the district for help. In November of 2024, the child was charged for assault on a civil servant.
Then I had asked them in multiple emails if we couldn't figure out a different setting for him.
Now, months later, the father says they are in the same boat after another assault against a teacher during an outburst where he says the teacher was taking things away from his son that he was putting in his mouth.
I guess that upset him because he had seen them putting the things away, and he had tried to push the teacher out of the way to get into the closet that they were putting the things away in, and she got pushed.
Northside ISD said the employee was injured. EMS and police were called.
They had called me before, and I was at work, so I called them back at break, and when I got to him at break, it was already too late. They had already had him in handcuffs and detained him.
The child was taken to the juvenile detention center and given a court date.
We had went to court, and that's when they sentenced him to 8 days of detention.
The father is now calling for change and more training for teachers in dealing with special needs students. The child did have a behavioral intervention plan in place, which is a customized plan designed to address behavioral challenges in the classroom. The district says they are confident the student's behavioral plan was followed appropriately and it was the teacher that decided to file charges. Judge William Cruz Shaw was the judge who handled the student's assault case. The judge says the criminal justice system should be used as a last resort in dealing with these types of issues.
Juvenile detention is not the safe space to de-escalate situations.
And the father is now calling for change and more training when it comes to teachers in dealing with special needs students. As for the child, he is back in class. The father says he seems to be doing okay, but it's tough to tell. Mike Menace, KENS 5.
RVFCU credit cards go beyond everyday purchases. Whether you're looking
Yes,
for
it's
rewards,
tough to tell these days. You know why? Because that's the last resort. Remember the 14-year-old who assaulted a teacher? He was charged with assault. A slap on the wrist, don't ever do it again. Now, hadn't followed through, he would have gotten he would have been sent to juvie for during his suspension, and then his brother would have come pick him up. But it was a slap on the wrist. There was no slap on the wrist for this child.
Tonight,
And it was a last resort. I mean, the teacher feels like she was assaulted, there's nothing the school can do. They can't just say, hey, you can't file a report. And 10 hours ago, I commented, hey, where's the common sense? Have they lost common sense? Well, we got to find common sense for them to say, hey, we need to be retrained on this. This is not what I was trained to do. Homeschool, dude. Take him to a doctor. If Dad is so concerned, he should homeschool his precious baby. These kids in their own classroom. They disturb the other students trying to learn. So tired of this. These kids did have their own classroom. Blame the government officials for wanting to place children with special needs into general education classes. Knowing those children would have hard time learning due to their disabilities, politics is the reason behind this change. I grew up around children with special needs during my time in high school. Yes, it's sometimes disturbed by the students, but our teachers back then knew how to calm them down. We didn't call the police every time there was an issue. We had a school resource officer who was trained to handle situations involving students with special needs. Once the student was calmed down, they were usually sent on to their next class. Why aren't police trained to handle people with disabilities? So for 8 days, they put this kid who I'm going to guess by the way he's nonverbal. You got 8 days with a bunch of police officers who already don't care about him, or will they even try to understand what he needs? Also, you have him with a bunch of criminal kids and teens. That's disgusting. That's what all these comments say, And as a person on the autism spectrum disorder, it makes me sick. It makes me sick to see an 11-year-old child who was on the spectrum given an 8-day sentence in a juvenile detention center. 8 days. If the teacher feels like she's assaulted, she should not be reporting to the police. She needs to report the concern to her boss. If the boss says, "Thank you, Minister, our attention will take care of it right away," no one should go the other way around and say, "Well, I feel like you assaulted me. It hurts my feelings. I'm going to call the police." That's not the way to go. If it comes to that, then there's nothing that they can do. They can't just say, "Hey, don't file a report," but they have to work through the disciplinary system. What the shot? This dilemma. If he didn't like what the teacher's doing, he needs to report to the principal and say, "Ms. Carrillo, this teacher did something I didn't like," and blah 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 blah. They were taking care of it. Remember that 14-year-old? He was suspended for assaulting a student for inappropriate use of language and inappropriate physical contact. Carries 3 to 5 day suspension, so he narrowed it down to 3. He was back Thursday morning. He was back on Thursday. So he wasn't arrested. He wasn't sent to juvie. He was in charge as an adult. He wasn't sentenced to 8 days in juvenile detention center. But had the officer followed through an assault charge with the battery, then he would have been sentenced to juvie, and his brother would have come and picked him up. Is there more needs to get done here? Yes. Training. Teachers need training, and staff members need training to handle a special needs student. What there needs to be is special education programs every school, not inclusion where you would put a special needs person with regular kids. If you don't remember last season, we focused in on Sean, who had Down syndrome. He was put in an inclusion class because he was kicked out of his other school. So that kind of leads you to believe, more is going to be done, more training, and more everything needs to get done. There needs to be teacher assistants. There needs to be everything. When we came back to Florida, he was throwing things. The police was called. I don't know who called the police at first, but somebody called the police, and they handcuffed the child. And he was all like using profanity and all this and that and the third, and they sued. They sued the police department and the officer. So yes, more needs to get done, and training needs to be involved. If we don't train these teachers, then all of a sudden they're going to quit. Up next, this teacher was charged for child abuse, for child sexual abuse. He's on trial, and Chris Papps has his story from Project Baltimore. Please stay with us. Matthew Schlager, if the name sounds familiar to you in Maryland, he's charged for sexually abusing third grade students. Now he's on trial. Now he's brought before a jury. Tonight, there's new updates to this case, and even from May of 2024. Is he finally going to get what he deserves? Here's Chris Papps.
Project Baltimore was there in May of 2024 when Anne Arundel County Police arrested Matthew Schlegel at his home in Severna Park. According to court documents, Schlegel, a third grade teacher at Severna Park Elementary, allegedly sexually abused 8 students. According to charging documents, the 8 alleged victims are all former students of Schlegel who say he touched them inappropriately. Police say the alleged abuse occurred between August of 2022 and March of 2024 in Schlegel's classroom during the school day. Following a court hearing last year, Schlegel's family and friends declined to speak with Project Baltimore. In court, where cameras are not allowed, prosecutors said Schlegel used his status as a beloved teacher to prey upon the children. Prior to his arrest, Schlegel taught in Anne Arundel County for 16 years. He spent the first 8 years at Tyler Heights Elementary in Annapolis, before transferring to Severna Park in 2016. Schlegel faces 55 total charges, including multiple counts of sex abuse of a minor. But Schlegel is just one of many educators in our area who, over the past few years, have betrayed the public's trust. A Project Baltimore investigation found at least 20 educators, including Schlegel since 2022, have been charged or convicted of sexual offenses involving a minor. Educators from private and public schools. In 2022, Anne Arundel County teacher Jennifer Arnold was found guilty of sexually abusing a former student. In 2024, Gilman school teacher Christopher Bendan was found guilty and sentenced to 35 years in prison for child sex abuse. Also in 2024, Melissa Curtis was arrested and found guilty of sexually abusing one of her former students while teaching years earlier at a public middle school in Montgomery County. Curtis was sentenced to 30 years in prison, but 29 of those years were suspended. She is currently serving 12 months. And later this year, former Prince George's County elementary school teacher Mark Cobb will be in court to face charges of coercion and enticement of a child and for possession of child pornography. If convicted, he faces a minimum of 10 years to life in federal prison. The list of educators we gathered is not comprehensive. There could be many more. The Maryland State Department of Education does maintain a list of educators statewide who have lost their licenses for a variety of reasons, some criminal, some not criminal. The list contains hundreds of names dating back to the 1990s. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
And the list would go on and on and on. That was 20 of those teachers who were charged for child abuse, for child sexual abuse. Think about this. You are a teacher. You don't just do it for the money. You do it because you care. And yet, you may sit there in court saying it never happened. I would never sexually abuse. I mean, you got a child of your own. If you got a child of your own which says, if you got a child of your own, would you sexually abuse that child? Probably not. No. I mean, if I was teaching, I would not sexually abuse my nephew. But if that happened, they accused me, I would admit to do it. And that would have happened, then it would be up to my brother to say, I don't want you around my nephew. I don't want you around my son. I don't want you around my new child, who I'm gonna have, which I'm probably gonna meet. I'm gonna have a new nephew or niece probably in December 2025. The thing to understand here is this, we pay teachers to teach. Teach, but don't touch. People want to claim, oh, this teacher touched me inappropriately. It's falsely accusing a teacher. And yet, there are people there that can just simply sit there and say to themselves, hey, maybe I shouldn't be, if I'm going to teach, I shouldn't touch. That's what it is. You teach, but you don't touch. That's the whole key here. I get where y'all are coming from here. I mean, kids don't like the teacher, so he or she claims that, oh, he sexually abused me or she touched me inappropriately. And then they just lose their jobs. And then later they find out, oh, this person falsely accused me. So they would sue the parents and the child, drag them to court and say, hey, this child falsely accused me and I don't want charges run on him. So what you got to understand here is this: we pay teachers to teach, not touch. That's the whole bottom line here. The list could go on and on and on and on, and we just would never know. So, should there be more? I mean, rape is rape. That's why we have all these teacher-student sex scandals all over the news, because it's the teacher's fault for not doing his job. Like if she's married, then the teacher needs to stand tall and say, "Hey, don't you dare! I'm a married woman. You're a minor. I cannot be doing this. I don't want to go to jail." Next time you see stories about this happening, call the station, call the reporter and say, stop lying. It's called rape. Rape is rape. Statutory, but 80 to 50 states, that's statutory rape. Every story we see involves one word: rape. Rape is rape. No matter what you want to say. In one child's case with Jennifer Dillingham, she says that the shooting came on her, and she fell for it. So in any case, she was charged, she was put on the sex offender list, and she resigned. She resigned before before the relationship ever happened. And so what did that lead you to believe, folks? That leads you to believe that, you know, rape, not just rape is rape. More need to be done. We need to, no statute of limitations needs to be done. We got to put them on a sex offender list. And what about the children? Don't just throw them away. Don't just lock them up, throw away the key. Teach them, hey, you know, rape is rape. Your child is a minor. Your child's under 18. He is a juvenile. He should not be doing this. Because if that were to happen, then I would tell you, you know, that's why you gotta homeschool your kids. You know, I'm not saying you should homeschool your kids. What I'm saying here is you need to talk to your kids. You're saying, oh, I love my teacher. Well, there needs to be a broader definition of the word love. We're gonna take a break. We'll be right back. Are you a hero or a vigilante? You would try to stop a burglary from ever happening in your own home, but then you would be painted as either a vigilante or a hero because he or she broke into your home and stole your shit. For then you're about to meet, he says that it happened to him. His home was burglarized and he had a shoot to kill. He had a thing called shoot to kill. But was he condemned a hero or a vigilante? We first brought you one story of one person by the name of Todd. He says he had to shoot the person that was robbing the victim. He was considered a hero. You would be the judge in this story. You were the judge in the Todd story. Now you get to be the judge in this story. Here's John Scott.
The lilting rhythms and sparkling settings of South Florida's Cuban community shattered by gunfire and a frantic 911 call. After working late in his used auto parts shop one night, Manny Roman went to sleep in his office. He was alone, but not unprotected. He had a gun, a loaded gun, to safeguard himself and his property. How many times have you been burglarized before?
The body shop? About 5 times. Businesses around here broken into on a nightly basis.
But on a quiet November night 2 years ago, police say a prowler broke into the back of the warehouse, crept quietly past racks hung with the greasy entrails of automobiles, and headed for the office where Roman was sleeping. Using a hammer, the intruder smashed the office window.
I felt a big explosion. It was dark. I saw something strange. I had the gun in my hand and I started shooting.
Could you see the man?
No, it was dark. I saw something in front of me.
You thought he had a weapon?
I didn't see if he had one or not. I didn't see if it was human. To me, it could have been a monster. I got goosebumps. It was terrible. Just remembering it, I still get goosebumps.
Did he say anything? Did he scream?
No, nothing. Everything was too fast.
Only later, after Manny Roman had called 911, did police learn that the burglar was Stanley Dixon, a 35-year-old who had been arrested 15 times on charges ranging from auto theft to assaulting a police officer. It seemed like such a simple case. A career criminal with a long record, later found to have alcohol and cocaine in his system, dispatched once and for all by a law-abiding citizen who said he fired in self-defense. But when police and prosecutors took a look at this case, they came to a very different conclusion. 2 crimes were committed here that night, they say: burglary and homicide. Manny Roman was charged with murder.
The law doesn't allow for vigilanteism.
David Waxman is the Miami State Attorney prosecuting Roman. In the late 1960s, Waxman was a cop walking a beat in the South Bronx.
You just can't take out guns and shoot people because you don't like what they're doing. That's not what the law of self-defense is all about.
I'm lying in my room, fast asleep. And suddenly the window above me shatters and I see a person standing there. Am I not justified in picking up my gun and shooting him?
We now have to make a split-second decision. You get your gun and you shoot the 2 or 3 figures you see in your dark living room. And it turned out there was an electrical fire and you just killed 3 firemen.
Where is that line between self-defense and homicide?
If it was necessary to protect your life, and if you acted reasonably to protect your life, you can use deadly force. If I don't pull the trigger now, I'm going to be dead in about a second and a half.
This is the first time I'm in a situation like this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I didn't know what I was shooting. I'm trying to save my life.
Have you ever been arrested before?
Never.
Have you ever been in trouble with the law?
Never.
So how did Manny Roman, hard-working Cuban exile, go from solid citizen protecting himself to second-degree murder suspect? It turns out that after Dixon broke in that night, Roman didn't just shoot him once or twice. Manny, the police report says you fired 13 shots. You hit him 11 times.
It was my survival instinct. When I heard that noise, that's what I shot. If I had had a grenade, I would have thrown that too.
And there's something else you should know about Roman's style of self-defense. He not only shot the intruder 11 times, more than half those bullets hit Dixon from behind. You hit him 6 times in the back. That's why you're in trouble, for shooting a man 6 times in the back.
No one who is a human being wants to kill anyone. What can I do? Panicked and I started shooting.
But now, more than 2 years after the killing of Stanley Dixon, Manny Roman is about to face a criminal trial and a cop-turned-prosecutor who recognizes that Roman is not your typical murder defendant. This is a guy with no record.
That's why this is a very unfortunate case. Someone is dead, and someone may be going to prison who, I hesitate to say who probably doesn't belong in prison, but if the jury decides he did a killing that was unnecessary, what do you do with people who do unnecessary killings? You tell them don't do it again?
But it didn't have to come to this for Manny Roman. Prosecutors offered him a deal. He could have pleaded guilty to manslaughter, received probation only, and a guarantee of no jail time at all. He turned them down.
This is not my fault. I did not go and bother anyone. I want to keep my record clean, and I will die with a clean record. Do you believe that they can find any jury that will find me guilty? I don't think so.
I think he did the right thing. I mean, if it would happen to me, I would have done the same thing.
Roman's hair-trigger response against the burglar tapped into the frustrations of other working people. He became something of a hero, especially in Hialeah, among his fellow Cuban refugees struggling to realize the American dream. Do you understand why, in certain circles, Mr. Roman is considered a hero?
Yes. When we select juries and ask who here has had a home burglary, 3/4 of the hands go up. Who on this panel has been the victim of armed robbery, half the hands go up. People are fed up.
What is the harm in letting Mr. Roman go? Stanley Dixon broke into his business, no question about that.
Well, I'll let you ask Stanley Dixon's mother that question. I'll rely upon her answer to you.
The Stanley I know was a good son, loving and caring. He was a special human being to me.
Bernice Dixon raised 9 children. Stanley was her 6th. She said he succumbed at times to petty criminal behavior, and she suspected some illegal drugs. But one drug he took had been prescribed for him, an antipsychotic medication called Haldol. Mrs. Dixon said Stanley was diagnosed as a schizophrenic.
Many days he came home and he said, Mom, the policewoman and the policeman says, go home, Stanley, to your mother. That's the way the people in this area treat them as a person with a problem, health problem.
What do you say to the people who think that Manny Roman is a hero?
Not in my book, he's not a hero. I don't understand how you can shoot someone 11 times. I don't think he deserved to be shot like an animal.
And according to police and prosecutors, it wasn't just that Dixon appeared to be retreating when he was shot. They also believe he carried no gun and no knife, only the hammer he used to break in.
Do you feel remorse?
Nobody wants to kill anyone. It hurts. But what can I do? What if he had killed me?
That's a question being asked all too often in a society where violence, or just the mere fear of it, breeds more violence.
If I had known, I would have never come out this door. He could have taken his whole business. You can replace our documents. But the problems, the bad times I'm going through, I'll never be able to get that time back.
Manny Roman's trial is scheduled to start June 26th. If convicted of second-degree murder, he faces as much as 17 years in prison.
Legally. Now, if he had taken the deal, he would have put on probation. But no, he didn't want a good record. He wanted to be a good boy. He's a hero. He's a hero to everybody. You know, you can't just sit there and say, okay, we're going to prosecute this guy because he shot this person over 5 times. Can't do that, you know. If you would like, if you're a hero, if you want to defend yourself, defend yourself. You shouldn't go out of your way to simply sit there and say to yourself, hey, this person does not have a gun. Let's prosecute him and see how he likes it. So where do we draw the line here with defending yourself? Well, what I have to say there is this. If you want to defend yourself, but you got to prove that your life was in danger. Now, if your life was in danger, and you prove that to the jury, if you prove that to the jury, then you would have all charges dropped, all charges would be cleared, and you would have a record. But without the proof, you'll never know whether he attacked you or not. So that's where the self-defense line card is being drawn. So who do you believe? I believe he's a hero. We'll take a break. Come right back. Being overweight. We all have that feeling. I was once overweight myself, 200 pounds, but now I'm at 180 pounds. But what if it were to be that job you're after? If you're thin, would you have that job? If you're overweight, would you be able to have that job? Well, tonight we're going to show you an experiment that could really help you out. That could really help you know the difference between getting that good job and even not getting the job because of your weight. Here's Lee Thompson.
When I go to a movie theater, there's no place for me to sit. When I walk down the street, people say nasty things to me. Being fat in America means that everywhere I turn, I get the distinct message I don't fit in, that there's no place for me in this society.
Sally Smith says fat Americans are discriminated against every day. Even though by the medical definition of more than 20% over ideal weight, 1 out of every 3 adults is fat. Smith's advocacy group, the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance, has received complaints of discrimination from more than 35 states. Where the discrimination hurts the most, Sally Smith says, is in the pocketbook.
When I go to apply for a job, chances are I won't be hired. Not because of my abilities, but simply because of the way I look.
The problem is job discrimination is hard to catch. So we wondered, with our hidden cameras, could we show that size really does make a difference? We hired 4 actors and paired them into 2 testing teams. Patricia, size 22, we paired with average weight Ann, size 8. And Terry, size 18, with average weight Sherry, size 7. We chose women because studies say they are more likely to be victims of fat discrimination than men.
Where weight is solely an issue as far as employment,
We got help from Long Island Housing Services, an agency in New York State that fights discrimination in the courts and is experienced in testing for it. All 4 women were trained to react to their interviewers in similar ways, and they were given almost identical resumes, an associate's college degree, and similar job histories. We equipped our testers with hidden cameras, checked out the want ads, and sent the women out to look for work. The women applied to a total of 9 employers. Some did treat them fairly. Sure. At this Abraham and Strauss department store in suburban Long Island, Patricia, size 22, and Ann, size 8, both applied for sales positions. This interviewer did look beyond Patricia's size and focused strictly on her abilities.
Tell me the outfit you have. The outfit I have on? Okay, I'm wearing a fashionable blue blazer, very good in business.
Both Patricia and Ann were offered a job starting that evening at equal pay. California Pizza Kitchen also treated our testers equally. Sherry and Terry were interviewed at length as part of a group. Both women were called back, interviewed again, and offered hostess jobs at $8 an hour. But at more than half the employers, our fat and thin testers were treated far differently. Tempo Services is a temporary employment agency in Westbury, Long Island. First up, Terry, who is 210 pounds.
What do you want to do? Receptionist clerk is I think, where I'm most comfortable. I think I'm a people person. I like greeting the people.
After a lengthy interview and clerical and typing test, Terry was offered a job in a hospital for $5.75 an hour. Terry told us she had found no discrimination here.
Like, oh, gee, we didn't find anything with this person. Well, she was really nice.
But then, minutes later, Sherry, 115 pounds, went in for her interview.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You're beautiful appearance. You speak well. You'd be very good on the phone.
Then, Sherry got a job offer.
Large oil company that uses telemarketers to get appointments for their salespeople. That's one. That starts at $7 an hour.
That's $1.25 more than Terry. And then the interviewer rattled off several other jobs that Sherry could have immediately, all starting at least $7 an hour.
And go temp to perm or perm to start. Corporate attire and excellent communication skills a must. That's you. Permanent salary will be $25K to $27,300.
That's good.
Good for Sherry, a revelation for Terry.
To find out from my counterpart that, this person was not as nice as I had thought, that all of a sudden I went from feeling bad for that person to feeling really bad for myself.
The newspaper want ads next took us to a Lord & Taylor department store in Garden City. Ann, 125 pounds, was told about several openings.
We have dresses, accessories, we have something full-time, handbags, part-time day. Yeah. Coats part-time. Furnishings, which would be men's furnishing. That sounds a little boring. I mean, I need a job. I know. I understand.
Ann asked about an advertised cosmetics position. This woman is the manager of that department, which includes fragrances.
Right now, I have an opening in men's fragrances. Oh, I see. Okay. Which is a part-time night.
Meanwhile, Patricia prepared for her interview, and just 30 minutes later, inquired about the same newspaper ad.
I don't know what they have open. What we're doing is screen.
No mention of dresses, coats, handbags, or any of the departments Ann was told about. And the fragrance job?
That was filled by somebody that's here at the store that works in luxury department.
It was like a subtle feeling that came over me. I was like, really? This is what goes on? You mean they did have a job? You mean they didn't want me because I'm fat?
The hiring person is favoring one person over another person.
New York attorney Louis Steele has represented plaintiffs in civil rights cases. We showed him our hidden camera tapes.
The inference that I draw is that a factor of discrimination played a part.
Our other team applied at the same Lord & Taylor a few days later. They met a different interviewer. First, Terry, size 18.
I don't know what I have available. I think I'd like to find something for you. Do you have any idea what I might be suited for, or what sort of area you'd be? Oh, yes. I just looked at it, be an opening in there. Oh, okay. The American Women Department.
That's the large sizes department. And Lord & Taylor told us it later called Terry to offer her that job. But listen to what size 7 Sherry heard just minutes after Terry had been there.
I do have a position open right now. It's a full-time position in men's collections.
Sherry was offered the job on the spot, and she was told there might be others.
And when would you be knowing about those other possibilities? Probably tomorrow.
I find it amazing and absolutely discriminatory that Terry comes in and is told, well, we don't really have anything. If we did, it would be in the fat lady section, for lack of a better term. And a few minutes later, Sherry walks in and is given all of these possibilities and is offered a job on the spot.
If you think most people wouldn't admit to hiring someone on the basis of their looks, listen to this employer.
My priority in interviewing somebody is that they have a look and a feeling to them that can relate to kids. All right? Okay. To me, you fit the picture.
Sherry fits the bill, but apparently not Terry. They both applied for a receptionist job at a Cohen's Fashion Optical children's store. Both had upbeat interviews, but only Sherry got the call back and the job from this woman, the boss.
My whole thing is I have 2 kids. I don't know if you have any children.
Not yet, no.
But when you're dealing with children, the person cannot be not attractive. They can be attractive looking person.
Cohen's Fashion Optical Vice President Norma Scalzulli watched that hidden camera interview.
Personally, I think you'd be great. You have a great face. Hey.
It just is not the way we normally do things. It is so not the way we do things that it's a little surprising. It's more than a little surprising.
You're surprised by this tape?
I'm upset by this tape.
Okay, let's take a look at Terry. We requested an interview with every other employer who appeared to discriminate against our testers.
On 9/15 she was called for a clerical assignment.
They were either unavailable or, like Tempo Services, insisted our women were treated fairly.
Everybody in our company signs a non-discrimination pledge.
Kathy Chitnik is president of Tempo. Remember, that's the temp agency where Sherry was offered several jobs and Terry only one at lower pay.
When I look for an employee, I'm placing an employee based on skills. I have no idea what that person looks like.
But this employee of Tempo knew exactly what Sherry looked like and admitted she liked what she saw.
Referral bonus, we want people like you. So we want you to refer people to us.
Like what? I mean, when you say like me.
Look like you, talk like you. I mean, really, you don't even have to have that many skills.
Sherry did need some extra math skills for one of the jobs she was told about. Watch this.
Could you do that in 15 minutes?
Using a calculator?
No.
I'm certainly willing to try it.
All right, we won't tell anybody if you don't do it, okay?
Really?
Go in the other room and do it.
Terry, size 18, wasn't given that break. She wasn't even given the math test so she could try out for the job. But Chitnik claims she was called back for other well-paying jobs.
Teresa has been offered 3 different reception positions in corporate offices, paying somewhere between $7 and $10 an hour to go permanent. Are you aware of that?
We were aware that Tempo had left a few messages for Terry, calls that she didn't return, but in the messages there was no mention of any job offers. And why was it during the initial interview Sherry was offered several jobs for $7 an hour and Terry only one at $5.75 an hour?
It happens. 1 minute I'll have an order for 100 people that I didn't have the minute before.
You're saying that in that 20 minutes, 6, 7, 8 jobs literally could have come in the door for Sherry?
Absolutely. We're in the temporary help business.
We wanted an explanation from Lord and Taylor as well. Remember, that's where our thin testers were told about several job possibilities. But size 18 Terry was told only about a job in the large sizes department. And size 22 Patricia wasn't told about a single opportunity. We offered to show Lord and Taylor our tapes if an official would be interviewed on camera. The store declined, but asked Dateline to let it view the unedited tapes independently. That was unacceptable to us. The store wrote us, "We are convinced no discrimination occurred. Clearly, the body style of the applicants was never considered by Lord and Taylor, and that Patricia was very evasive and not considered a good candidate, and that her employment application was incomplete, including the omission of personal references." But Sherry didn't submit references either, and she got a job offer. Do shoppers object to buying from fat people? There's very little research available, but a soon-to-be published study suggests they might.
People who were exposed to the obese salesperson believed very strongly that this salesperson would not be very effective with them in selling them the goods that they wanted and needed.
Whether it's weight, whether it's height, whether it's race, whether it's sexual preference, everyone who is competent should have an equal shot at the job. And because you're biased against fat people, because you don't think your customers will buy from fat people, that's not an acceptable excuse for discrimination.
And as our testers prove, victims of discrimination may not even know it's happening to them.
Somehow they must have believed that I was less capable, less of a person, less worthy because I'm fat. And that's not true.
Patricia and Terry are, of course, actors, and for the most part get their jobs because they're overweight. They both talk about the anger and hurt they felt doing this story, and say they will never see the world in exactly the same way.
And in the same way. So the bottom line here is this: do not discriminate. No discrimination at all. If you don't make no discrimination, period. No excuses at all. People want to make excuses like, oh, you know, maybe it should be blah 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 blah. It shouldn't be happening because none of it should happen, period. No excuse at all, period. We're going to take another break. Be right back. You remember earlier this season, we focused in on the gas pump ripoff to where you'll be cheated for gas. And as we're about to show you, there's more to this than just the cheating scams. Here's Brian Ross.
For people in the gasoline business, there's no more drastic action than what's about to happen here. A big oil company, Texaco, stripping one of its franchise dealers there.
You're taking out anything that has a Texaco logo? Yes, they can. Yes, they can, sir.
It happened in Southern California last week, in San Gabriel, just 72 hours after this and 4 other Texaco stations were named in our Dateline report on bad gasoline.
I thought the police said.
The dealer, Mari Kanawati, was so upset about it that Texaco had to call the police to protect its workers.
I saw that coming up for you.
And under police protection, down came the T, and the E, and the X, and down came the Texaco Star, as Texaco canceled its contract to supply both its name and its gasoline.
Today I might get touched. How can you put this sign down?
Dateline reported last week that Kanawati had been able to remain a Texaco dealer even after investigators caught him last year selling suspect, poor-quality gasoline.
Apparently the gas that you're selling here is not Texaco gas. Texaco gas, and I have received Texaco gas. Never, I don't buy gas for our stuff.
The now former Texaco dealer, Mr. Kanawati, claimed he bought all his gasoline directly from Texaco wholesalers. But authorities say what they found here in the pumps last year makes it unlikely that the gasoline being sold under the Texaco Star was actually coming from Texaco.
There is a fraud out there in the quality of gasoline.
Texaco's action came as welcome news for Maria Hernandez. She's one of the California investigators we saw last week working undercover, trying to get cheated at the gas pump. She told us she had been puzzled by the fact that stations caught selling bad gasoline had been able to remain as Texaco dealers.
It's a little puzzling, yes.
For its part, Texaco, in a letter to Dateline, said it only learned of the problems after watching our report, and that it was dismayed and upset about what we had found. Texaco said it took the drastic action because, quote, we will not tolerate our hard-earned reputation being sullied by an unscrupulous operator. And Texaco said more stations could lose their Texaco Stars this week.
Can you hold on 1 minute, please? Good afternoon, Measurement Standards.
California investigators say the phones were jammed with new complaints about problems at the pump the morning after the Dateline story.
I need to know an approximate pump, and the reason being is that they go to the exact same pump that you do and purchase undercover gas from there.
And all the new complaints had Maria Hernandez back in action, undercover at the pumps. In this case, buying diesel fuel, which is used in many trucks and foreign cars. At the lab, the fuel Maria bought was found to be substandard.
And it can damage the car, it can damage the piston because it sparks more.
With measurement standards,
The next day, Maria moved in.
The diesel fuel did not meet specifications. So you won't be able to sell the diesel.
The owner denied any wrongdoing, but the diesel pump was red tagged and more legal action is possible in what appears to be yet another case of cheating at the pump. As we reported last week, with the summer vacation season now in full swing, the American Automobile Association, the AAA, has issued warnings about widespread cheating at the pump, particularly in the 22 states where, unlike California, there is no regular gasoline quality testing.
You're talking a problem in hundreds of millions to the low billions.
From the simple cheating at the pump.
Cheating at the pump.
Paul Verkaya, the president of the AAA, says the kind of cheating reported by Dateline threatens the integrity of the entire industry because it drives out honest gas station dealers.
It can create a situation where those who do cheat have competitive advantages against those who play it straight. And over time, your costs are going to be different, and you may force the good operator out of business.
In our report last week, we found adulterated and contaminated gasoline to be a widespread problem. These two samples came from Oregon, one with a layer of thick sediment on the bottom, and the other looked more like orange juice than the normally clear gasoline, not to mention the floating debris on top. Now, would the customers ever know what they were getting?
No, a customer would not know that he was getting...
And a former key man in a big California gas station chain, Ed Scott, told us how tanker truck loads of regular gasoline were secretly mixed at night with half a load of cheap waste oil, all to boost profits at the pump.
There were times that I saw samples taken out of their tanks where the gasoline looked like chocolate milk.
Dateline NBC went behind...
And also this week, in the wake of Dateline's story, there were new reports all over the country about suspect gasoline.
In Kentucky, about 8% of the pumps are inaccurate. In Illinois, the job of testing gasoline statewide falls on the Department of Agriculture.
In Indianapolis, reporter David McAnally found a classic case of what appeared to be octane cheating.
Investigators say the gas coming out of this pump was the same gas coming out of this one, from the same underground tank. People buying super unleaded were actually getting regular unleaded, but paying 6 cents more a gallon.
But it's not just the gasoline that can be suspect. Last week, investigator Maria Hernandez showed us how people get cheated right under their noses, right at the gas pump with rig pumps.
Can I go to the island next to the white van?
Using a special tank in the trunk of her car, Maria Hernandez says she was able to catch this gas station red-handed, shortchanging her. Dateline hidden cameras were rolling as she pumped gas into a tank that only holds 10.4 gallons. 11 gallons. 11.5 gallons now. So they cheated you?
Yes, it was a rip.
When the owner of the station, David Berry, showed up, he denied any cheating. You have a switch somewhere you throw? You cheat people?
No.
You don't cheat anybody?
No.
But state investigators say they think the station used some kind of remote control switch to activate the cheating. And the case is now in the hands of the district attorney for further action. The case of the rigged gas pumps in California attracted a lot of attention from authorities around the country, particularly in New York.
We have found the same rigged devices at 3...
Where the city commissioner of Consumer Affairs, Richard Strada, told Dateline this week his investigators have found a remarkably similar pump rigging scheme at a number of New York gas stations.
We found that we were paying for 7 gallons of gasoline, but only receiving 5 gallons. We then brought inspectors in, and we searched the panel board right by the cash register or the kiosk of the gas station, and we found some wires that obviously shouldn't have been there.
This is what investigators found. A jerry-rigged circuit board. The orange wires are not supposed to be there. But investigators say they were illegally connected, so the gas station could tamper with the supposedly tamper-proof gas pumps.
The 2 wires slow the flow of gasoline as it leaves the pump and goes into your tank, so that you're receiving less gasoline in your car, but paying more for it. Technically, you could jerry-rig this kind of box at any gas station in the country.
And finally this week, just when authorities thought they had seen it all,
That's our gas station.
an amazing case broke in Los Angeles that served to underscore just how much money there is to be made in cheating at the pump.
I have been a detective about 18 years. When we got into the scope of this is the biggest forgery activity in terms of victims and in dollars I'd ever come across.
Detective Robert Thorson of the Los Angeles Police Department says the case started with a tip involving a ring of gas station operators, for some reason, going around to other gas stations like this one to buy gasoline in the middle of the night.
I mean, it was a full-time job, sometimes 24 hours a day.
Police surveillance teams at first weren't sure what was going on until they realized that this truck and this car and a number of other vehicles had specially built fuel tanks that allowed the suspects to buy as much as 300 gallons of gasoline at a time, which they then resold at their own station.
Been making many, many purchases a day. In fact, in one 10-hour period, we observed them purchase 1,800 gallons of gas and diesel. And then they would take these tanks and these vehicles that they had equipped with these special fuel cells back to their service station and put them into their tanks.
And what police discovered next should get the attention of millions of Americans who use bank cards or credit cards to pay for gasoline at the pump. Detective Thorson says the suspects were making their huge nighttime purchases with their very own customers' credit card numbers.
Say a person goes and uses a legitimate credit card transaction at the gas station, well, those are recorded on a tape. At the end of the day, they can look through and say, hey, a guy used a Visa card, it went through just fine. Then they'll call up their friend and say, this is a good number. And then they'll encode a credit card and go off of that number.
2-0. On this day, the work of Detective Thorson, a special police task force, was about to pay off as authorities moved in on what they are calling a ring of ingenious gas con artists. CNBC cameras were there as police discovered what they called the nerve center of the scam.
The computer, the encoder, everything's here.
In the back room, the computer was still up, loaded with valid bank card and credit card numbers from all over the country. And next to it, a machine police say the con artists used to encode the valid numbers onto blank credit cards, hundreds of them.
And all they need is a list of good numbers, put them in the computer, and then just pass cards through.
Parked outside, one of the cars used in the gas scam, with its huge 300-gallon gas tank visible in the back.
They open this up and put the gas right into the tank there.
And in the garage of the gas station, police say they interrupted work as they were building even more of the specially rigged vehicles, which had been stripped down to the frame to make room for the huge gas tanks. The men at the gas station denied any knowledge of what was going on.
I don't know nothing.
What? Really? You know where the gas comes from that you sell here?
We bought the gas. I don't know.
Bought the gas? From where?
Well, I don't know. I'm just a worker.
But moments later, police arrested this man and 8 others on suspicion of grand theft and forgery. All of them recently arrived Russian immigrants. Authorities told Dateline the credit card gas scam ties into a much bigger investigation of Russian and American organized crime in the gasoline business.
These groups are very well organized, they're very high-tech, they're very sophisticated, and very profitable. Dangerous, too. I would say very, very dangerous.
Detective Thorson says there's more to come on all that soon. But for now, the job at hand is to track down the latest victims in yet another clever scam at the gas pump, one in which the crooks have found a way to use your credit card to buy their gas and then sell the same gas right back to you.
Many of the gas station scams we've uncovered came to light through consumer complaints. So if you suspect that you're being ripped off at the pump, report it. Call it into your state's Attorney General or the AAA.
If you report it, you're doing a good thing. Telling is not tattling. That's all for this edition of Game Break Wednesday going to Thursday. We'll see you again for Game Break Friday. Follow us here on YouTube. Stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. Take care of yourself and each other. Good night.